Breaking news from around your world on this Wednesday, April 17th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Peruvian authorities said the country's former president, Alan Garcia, died in a hospital in Lima Wednesday, hours after shooting himself in the head to avoid arrest in connection with a bribery probe. Garcia, who was elected president twice, was 69 years old. Garcia had been dogged by allegations of corruption in recent years. He was one of 9 people a judge had ordered to be arrested Wednesday for alleged involvement in bribes distributed by Odebrecht, a Brazilian construction company that triggered Latin America's biggest graft scandal when it admitted in 2016 that it paid kickbacks to politicians across the region to secure lucrative contracts. He had denied wrongdoing involving Odebrecht and blamed his legal troubles on political persecution. Garcia governed as a nationalist from 1985 to 1990 before remaking himself as a free market proponent and winning another 5-year term in 2006. President Martin Vizcarra said on Twitter that he was consternated by Garcia's death and sent his condolences to his family members. Severe weather in India killed nearly 50 people amid heavy rains and a strong dust storm. Officials said Wednesday that at least 10 people were struck by lightning in the Madhya Pradesh state, and at least 21 died in Rajasthan. In Maharashtra, a man, a woman, and a temple priest all died when they were struck by lightning. Forecasters said the storms will continue into Thursday. The storms damaged hundreds of electrical poles and transformers in Udaipur, and officials said floods from the heavy rain ruined crops and drowned cattle. Officials canceled a rally in Sabarkantha for Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi because of the dangerous weather. Jet Airways, once India's largest airline, announced Wednesday that it is suspending all operations after failing to raise enough money to run its services. The company said it had been informed by its lenders, led by state-run State Bank of India, that they are unable to consider its request for funding to keep flying. On Tuesday, Jet Airways' former chairman, Naresh Goyal, reportedly withdrew plans to bid for a controlling stake in the company. He founded Jet Airways in 1992 and saw it soar to become India's largest airline. It was not immediately clear who else might bid for the company. Etihad Aviation Group purchased a 24% stake in 2013. Jet Airways had 119 planes on December 31st when it first defaulted on some of its more than $1 billion in debt. This week, it reduced its operations to only 7 aircraft flying domestic routes. Jet Airways pilots complained that they had not received a salary in 4 months. News reports indicated 20,000 jobs at the airline were at stake. Meanwhile, United Airlines said that its first quarter profit doubled to $292 million as it carried more passengers and limited costs other than fuel. The results beat Wall Street expectations for a quarter that began with the partial government shutdown, which dinged travel by federal employees, and ended with Boeing 737 MAX jets grounded around the world. The airline gave an upbeat forecast of second quarter revenue trends. However, Chicago-based United did not raise its full-year earnings prediction. In a message to employees, CEO Oscar Munoz said the latest results vindicated a strategy of adding more flights, investing in customer service, and managing costs. The second quarter is likely to benefit slightly by having Easter travel fall entirely in April, unlike last year. At United, that could be offset, however, by the additional costs of managing around the grounding of its 14 Boeing MAX aircraft. Regulators around the world grounded the MAX last month after a second deadly crash. As a result, American and Southwest Airlines have removed thousands of flights from their schedules out into August. United, which has fewer MAX jets than those two rivals, has claimed to be less affected. Meanwhile, the Boeing 737 MAX 8 fleet should be able to fly again with new software and without new simulator training for pilots. That's the advice in a new report by the Federal Aviation Administration. A 57-page draft report by the FAA's Flight Standardization Board said engineers are still working on a software update for the plane, which was grounded worldwide since shortly after the crash of an Ethiopian Airlines jet last month. The panel is comprised of expert pilots who have reviewed the software fix. More than 300 people died in 2 crashes involving the MAX 8 since October. Investigators believe anti-stall software forced the planes into a dive and that pilots were not trained for that scenario. Boeing has completed 96 flights totaling more than 159 hours of airtime with the new software fix, and the update could be finished by the end of the month at the earliest. The software fix is the first of several steps in getting the MAX planes back into service. Regulators in other countries also have to sign off on the software fix before the planes will be allowed to fly in their airspace. President Donald Trump vetoed a congressional resolution that sought to end U.S. involvement in the Saudi-led coalition fighting Houthi rebels in Yemen. This resolution is an unnecessary, dangerous attempt to weaken my constitutional authorities, endangering the lives of American citizens and brave service members, both today and in the future, Trump said in a statement. It was only the second veto of Trump's presidency. The United States can now continue aiding Saudi Arabia in a bombing campaign aimed to contain expansion in the region by Iran, which supports the Houthi rebels. Human rights groups say the Saudi-led effort has targeted civilian facilities and disrupted aid shipments, exacerbating a devastating humanitarian crisis. Egypt's parliament Tuesday overwhelmingly approved sweeping changes to the national constitution that could allow President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to rule until 2030. The 531-22 vote in the pro-Sisi parliament would give the former military leader unprecedented control over the judicial system. The changes to the Constitution will also declare the military the guardian and protector of Egypt's democracy and constitution, which critics argue will give the armed forces too much political power. While the amendments still need final authorization by public vote, Sisi's government has already clamped down on opposition by blocking online petitions urging people to vote against the changes. The Trump administration plans to let Cuban Americans and other U.S. citizens sue foreign companies in U.S. courts for using properties Cuba's communist government confiscated since Fidel Castro's revolution 6 decades ago. Reuters is reporting that, citing a senior U.S. official. The policy shift, part of an effort to pressure Cuba over its support for embattled Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, reportedly will be announced Wednesday. It could discourage foreign investment on the island by exposing U.S., European, and Canadian companies to legal battles. President Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton, is expected to announce the decision in a speech in Miami, in which he will also announce new sanctions against Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, countries he calls a troika of tyranny. 2 students blamed for starting a large forest fire in the Italian region of Como have each been fined 13.5 million euros. The men, both aged 22, were barbecuing at a mountain forest home belonging to one of their grandfathers when the fire broke out on December 30th last year. The huge bill for the 2 students was calculated by local officials based on a formula used to determine the extent of damage caused by the fire. One of the students told Italian media they were scapegoats for the blaze, but that he was also deeply sorry. He said there were multiple sources of the outbreak. Prosecutors, however, traced the path of the fire back to the property and said it had been started by embers from the barbecue, coupled with extremely dry conditions. The 2 young men were found jointly responsible, along with the owner of the property. Italian media reports also suggest that the pair could be held liable in separate actions by property owners who were affected by the fire. The prosecutor said the fine was a signal that we need to push people to greater responsibility in protecting the environment. Apple and Qualcomm said that they had agreed to dismiss their dueling lawsuits around the world. As a trial got underway in a San Diego federal courtroom in Apple's complaint against Qualcomm, the company said they had reached a 6-year agreement under which Apple will pay unspecified royalties on Qualcomm patents. Apple, maker of the iPhone, and Qualcomm, the biggest provider of mobile chips, had been battling over how Qualcomm charges royalties on its patents on mobile chips. Qualcomm in the 1990s pioneered technology now critical in mobile devices, allowing it to charge royalties on smartphones even if they don't have Qualcomm chips. The settlement suggests Apple will drop its objection to the arrangement, assuming Qualcomm's royalties aren't set too high. Qualcomm shares jumped by more than 20% after the news. And that's your update for this Wednesday, April 17th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.